I kind of scratched my head and said, why am I in this job? Why do I have this company? This sucks. I hate it. Every day was stressful. Every day was the pressure of, am I going to get this thing or not?
Mm-hmm.
You wake up and you're like, how am I going to get this thing? And I call that holding on too tight. I'm holding on too tight to this thing that I have no control over, but I'm tricking myself that I do. So one day I just said, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. And I talked to the team. I said, over the next 90 days, I'm going to help you find another job. I'll do everything I can, but in 90 days, I don't want to be doing this anymore. And they're like, okay.
Amazing.
So we helped people find jobs, and many of them went to the clients that we already worked with, which was great. And so now I'm faced with this, what's next, right? And I have a family, and so there's some stress. And I just was like, I'm gonna do sales. I'm gonna be a sales leader. I can do that. And so I started to apply for jobs, and nobody would respond. So I'm like a little nervous. And out of the blue, I get two or three calls where people are like, hey, can you come in and help my team? I was like, well, what does that look like? And they're like, I don't know, but I know you. I know what you do. And I'd like you to come in and just start working with my team.
I'm very happy to have you here.
Likewise, yeah, I'm really curious about what we're going to co-create today. That's one of my favorite words. So I'm excited.
I love that. I'm sorry. I interrupted.
Oh no, it's one of my favorite words. It's funny. I've got a lot of different clients and they hear me say co-create all the time. And I was at a conference, speaking at a conference, and many of the clients were in the audience and they decided to count how many times I said co-create while I was up there. And I think I got to five or six, but they kept having these smirks because apparently it was like an inside joke. They were all going to count how many times they said the word co-create and they took bets on it. So yeah, I'm a big fan.
I love it. I love it because me too. When I talk about co-creation, in my experience, collaboration doesn't work. And for me, collaboration comes from the doing. Co-creation comes from the being. S-
Okay.
So co-creation comes from you and me being here, wholehearted, um, in the now, yeah, in the being. And from there, we are co-creating something. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know where we're going. And collaboration is the difference is that collaboration, you go in with a goal. So as you are with a goal, you will always change yourself to get to the goal. So you're giving up pieces of you by to adjust to get to the goal. So you
I re
cannot be whole. You cannot just flow. You cannot. You always are limiting it because you want to go to the goal.
yeah,
Co-creation doesn't limit. You are surprised with what happens afterwards once you
absolutely.
look back.
Do you find co-creation works for certain scenarios, or is a better mindset for certain scenarios whereas collaboration might be, yeah, we do have something we really need to achieve. And how does that fit in your mind? Like really knowing there's a place you need to go, and then also saying, hey, maybe there's a place we think we want to go, but we don't even know that right now. So how do you see that? How do you guide that type of thinking?
Well, when it's at work IT, and you have a goal of a project that has to finish in a certain point in time. Well, you are collaborating to for the goal to happen, but also I believe you can co-create with your team all the time without diverging from where you were going, let's say. But
Okay.
more things happen, good things come out when you are co-creating, because at the end, you are allowing everyone to be who they are. At the end,
Yeah,
it's that. At the end, you are who you are, and many ideas may come up, no, because you are allowing yourself to really flow and not restrain yourself from anything, you know?
absolutely. Yeah. I
So yeah, it's that part. Mm-hmm.
I have a little story. I was just in
Mm-hmm.
Canada with a client and we had finished 3 days of really just hard, big conversations, important conversations for the future of the company. And there's a lot of family dynamic in this company too. And at the end, I had this inspiration, like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, somebody gave me some posters, little posters you can pull out of like a notebook, and they're
Mm-hmm.
inspirational, and they're all about like goals and being creative, and like they're inspirational posters. And I just for some reason picked it up and I put it in my bag. I was like, you know what? At the end of the meeting, I'm going to pass these around if it makes sense and ask everyone to pull off a poster. These were all guys. These are pretty like macho guys. Like
Yeah.
they're they're
I,
they're definitely in that type of a business.
yeah.
And so I took a chance. I was like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know why I'm going to give you this, but something tells me I want to pass these posters out. And they're like, what? And I hold it up and it's like, be a badass, be the best you can be, love yourself, stuff like this. And they're kind of looking at me like, okay, I'll trust you. And what was amazing was one of them pulled out this poster and he put it in his office. You have to love yourself first. And I just it
Yeah.
surprised me and I
Yeah.
felt so great because here we had this meeting really about change and where the company was going and leadership dynamics. And this is the poster he chose. Another
Mm-hmm.
person on the team chose a poster that said something like ignore your fear or something about fear. And he was present enough with himself to pick that and tell all those other guys that. And he put that in his office. So I think what's so fascinating here is it was just an inspiration that I took these.
Mm-hmm.
I've
Mm-hmm.
never done this before. I do not have a stack of posters. This is the first time I've ever done it. And somebody had given it to me as a gift many years ago. And then at the end of the meeting, I had never done this either. And, here these guys are pulling off these very inspirational posters and putting them in their offices at the end of the meeting. And it was less about change and being, a badass or like that. And it was more about like loving yourself or ignoring fear and moving on with your life.
Yeah.
So I love the whole idea of possibility and
Yes.
you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And if you live in co-creation, you can be okay with not knowing what's next.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, you are okay. When you live in a co-creation, you are okay with not knowing what's next.
Yeah. And
It's
it
a
was it's fun
surprise.
to see that. It's fun to see that show up because I think we all have biases or things that we think are going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times they happen because we're guiding it toward the thing that we think is going to happen, right?
Yes.
And I love that you're saying that, co-creation is about just letting it flow and see where something goes. So yeah, awesome perspective.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Well, and it's what I envision, no, for the world, for everyone to be like that, for everyone to let themselves be with no fear. So they're like the post-its, no, love yourself first, be, no, trust in you, and then don't have fears. It won't happen. It's in your mind. You
Right.
never will know what's going to happen because you're just thinking it will happen, but you don't know. It's the future. So
Yeah.
the beautiful is to, and the magical is really to be here and choose every moment, no, through what you feel like what you did, no, listening to your intuition, and just doing it has changed something that you never had thought it would change.
Yeah. I had another experience like that just yesterday, actually.
Uh-huh.
There's some lakes near my house, and I have a sailboat. I also have a teenage son. He's 16. So in the morning, I was like, hey, I'm going to go sailing. Do you want to come with me? And he never comes with me, like never. He goes, yeah, I do. Oh, okay. You just changed the perception of my afternoon because you never go with me. And a couple hours later, he goes, hey, I've got 3 of my friends going with me. I was like, oh, so all of a sudden I have me and 4 16-year-old guys. Okay, cool. And I've known these kids all my life. And I said, you sure they want to go? And they're like, yeah. And we get in the car and a couple of them are like, what are we doing again? And I'm like, we're going to the lake and going sailing. And the wind was getting really strong.
Mhm.
And I was like, hey, we're going to get up there and the wind might be so strong that I decide we don't sail or it might be okay. What else do you want to do? And they're like, can we swim? I'm like, we can do whatever you want. It's just, 5 guys hanging out. And sure enough, we had an amazing time. We get on the boat. It was really windy. None of them had really sailed before. So there's this adventure that happens all of a sudden. It was safe, but it got
Yeah.
a little scary. So
Mhm.
they had some adventure. And then they were like, hey, can we swim? And we just, sailed a little bit further into a cove, dropped the sails, anchored, and then they swam, and then they swam to the shore, and then they explored and found stuff and joked around and came back. And we swung by and got ice cream on the way home. None of that was planned. It was all just free flowing. And we got back home. My wife comes out and she's like, "Hey, how was it?" And the kids were like, was an amazing time. I don't know why we don't do this all the time." And in my mind, I had never thought of even the possibility of taking my son and one of his friends, let alone three of his friends. Um, and it was great. And so I do think it's that ability to let something happen and
Mm-hmm.
and let go of expectations.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
uh,
Yes.
and and whether you want to call it like let the magic of life happen or something like that, but
Yeah.
I would never have planned that. I could never, and I'm really good at planning things.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I love it. How does this show up in your life? How do you live in co-creation yourself?
Yes. Well, I'm a systems engineer. Um, I work in IT. Always worked in IT already since 97.
Yeah.
And lately I did a bachelor and a master and so in metaphysical science and so. But um, I've always been very structured. And in 2012, I started a social enterprise. I wanted to well, empower those that were doing good and give them visibility. But and by going there, I I was doing a lot, not being. I was doing a lot, and because you're pushed to do many things,
Mm.
and I didn't fit in because I'm always I was always saying that if you create a project, the person behind the project is the most important thing. No, so many things told me and showed me that the doing is not the way of going. No, it's really more the being because well, I lost all my savings and so many things just because I believed I had to do certain things. So I think I learned the hard way to really be and to dare to be. Before I was scared to be. So I was talking about daring to be. No, I had I have a movement, positive impact movement, and then and it changed into a community. During COVID, I had the community. We had these talks and these conversations in the community. So I explored, experience, and practiced a lot to be in the heart and not to dare anymore to be, but to be. And
Right.
I apply it now everywhere. I have a team of in IT. They are SAP consultants, and I'm guiding them for them to be who they are and create what they love. And I know that they like that they grow, the business grows, and
Right.
I have shown it. It works, and so I really when I say I am who I am, I create what I love. I do it everywhere,
Yeah. I love
everywhere.
it reminds me, I'm a consultant and I'll come into companies and I'll work with teams, typically sales teams, but they're smaller companies. So these are usually companies run by owners, people that founded it, put their money in it, maybe their families in it. So I'm not talking about these giant corporations, though
Hmm.
I sometimes work with teams within that, but normally it is an owner and they have a team, maybe they have 20 to 100 people on it and there's a sales organization and it's not quite working or they want it to be better. That's kind of where I live most days. And it's always fascinating because I'll go in and I'll talk to one of the leadership team members at a company. And sometimes they already have a very predetermined, this is why you're coming in. And other times they're like, I don't know why you're coming in. I
Hmm.
just know my team can be better. And those are the really great clients
Yes.
because when I come in, oftentimes the salespeople are afraid. They're like, oh, this guy's going to come in and I'm going to get fired. And it's actually the opposite. I'm going to come in and I'm going to try to understand just like what's your being? Who are you? Where do you create value? What do you wish you could be doing? If your day could be the way you wanted it, what would that look like? And they kind of look at me on these Zoom calls like, you're asking me this and you're a consultant in sales. Why aren't you talking about how I close and make more money? I'm like, because that's the outcome of you living your best life in this job, right? And so this is where, we have uncovered a gazillion things we would have never thought about if we came in really
Mhm.
prescribed and, oh, Bob needs to get better at closing. Let's make sure Bob closes more. Well, maybe Bob just needs to be happier.
Yes.
Maybe Bob just needs to find the place where he can communicate the way he wants to communicate to the potential customers, and then let's see what happens. And so it's fascinating because it takes a special leader, a special owner of a company that say, I'm okay with that. It's not for everyone. And I have found that there are different types of companies where this is a fit and others where it's scary as can be.
Scary.
But ultimately, I always tell people, look, I don't know what's going to happen, but at the end,
Mhm.
you're going to have a better team and they're going to be happier and more adjusted and they're going to do better. And so sometimes people are like, so your job is to make happy sales teams? And I was like, well, their job is to make themselves happy. But yeah, at the end, they're going to have a happy sales team. And I don't know if there's a business book out there that says your goal is to make happy sales teams. It doesn't seem like the obvious answer because the
Mhm.
answer is usually money, 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 revenue, revenue,
Yeah.
revenue. And it's interesting because when I started, I would never have thought that as well. It was an accident that I
Mhm.
that I have the job that I have.
Yes.
It was an accident. It just happened.
And how did it happen? So that it's nice
Well,
to
yeah.
hear.
Well, it happened because I was before, the
Mm-hmm.
Carl before was very much okay, what do I need to do to get this thing, right? I have a very specific desired thing that I want. And I'm literally saying thing. I'm not saying experience or emotional thing. A thing. I want more money. I want a car. I want to be more successful, whatever, whatever. Like there was a thing that I wanted, and I would figure out what do I need to do to get to this thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I had a company where that's our job. Our job we would come into companies and we would get them more appointments. We would find them more business so that they could close more business and make more money. We were in the business of steps to get to a thing, which happened to be more money.
Yeah.
After about 6 or 8 years of pretty much every day not really enjoying it and finding that success it was random. It was usually positive, but there'd be some times where it didn't work out. I kind of scratched my head and said, why am I in this job? Why do I have this company? This sucks. I hate it. Every day was stressful. Every day was the pressure of, am I going to get this thing or not?
Mm-hmm.
You wake up and you're like, how am I going to get this thing? And I call that holding on too tight. I'm holding on too tight to this thing that I have no control over, but I'm tricking myself that I do. So one day I just said, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. And I talked to the team. I said, over the next 90 days, I'm going to help you find another job. I'll do everything I can, but in 90 days, I don't want to be doing this anymore. And they're like, okay.
Amazing.
So we helped people find jobs, and many of them went to the clients that we already worked with, which was great. And so now I'm faced with this, what's next, right? And I have a family, and so there's some stress. And I just was like, I'm gonna do sales. I'm gonna be a sales leader. I can do that. And so I started to apply for jobs, and nobody would respond. I've got to tell you, I have an extremely successful sales practice. I
Mm-hmm.
have people, including myself, when we come in as VPs and sales leaders, I know how to sell, but nobody's hiring me to be a full-time employee. So I'm like a little nervous. And out of the blue, I get 2 or 3 calls where people are like, hey, can you come in and help my team? I was like, well, what does that look like? And they're like, I don't know, but I know you. I know what you do. And I'd like you to come in and just start working with my team. Well, from a financial point of view, I was like, oh my God, thank you. Finally,
Yes.
I've got some income coming in. But from a what's going on? It was still this, I don't know what I'm even going to do. I'm just going to come in. I'm going to start to talk to people. And so I started to come in, and one was this nonprofit, which was great because I started to see how building this team up would enable that cause to be, it's around mental health, a lot more effective, and then therefore could help a lot more people. And
Mm-hmm.
so all of a sudden, I kind of got this inspiration of, huh, business doesn't just have to be about getting this thing, getting that money. I'm actually improving all these people's lives. And as their lives improve, they're helping the mental health community because they're being more successful. I was like, whoa, this is powerful. I love this. And again, would never, ever have thought that. That was not on my vision board, my whiteboard, whatever, my list of things. And the other client was the same thing. They they had a message to spread. They're a professional organization supporting other companies. And it was the same thing. And then from there, I started to get thank you notes and emails. Thank you so much for coming in. You've changed my life. And I was like, this is crazy. What? I've always seen myself as the guy that comes in and helps people make more money, but now I'm the guy that comes in and helps teams become better as a team and better as individuals. And the outcome of that is these businesses grow. And so I just kind of stood on that. I actually started to write some books. Uh,
Yeah.
my business started to grow, and that's how it happened. And it was an accident. It was never planned to do this. And it's one of the most satisfying things because all of a sudden you're like, I am doing what I love. I am doing what I
Mm-hmm.
was built for. I just didn't know what it was.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes. And then in all this story, the thing is that you are listening to your intuition, well, to your feelings, no, and to not being happy and doing something about that and letting
absolutely.
go and just being in the then in a space when you didn't have your company anymore. You were in this space of okay, now, no, of
Yeah,
this emptiness, which
absolutely.
allows for you to
Space.
see things, no? And I mean to receive, to feel.
Absolutely. It takes a little while to go from, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And you're in
Mm.
survival. Like, oh
Yeah,
my God. But that's a construct too, because
yeah,
we still don't know what's going to happen,
no.
And that possibility is always something I go back to. The possibility that I don't know the answer. I don't know what's going
Mm-hmm.
to happen today. And the possibility that maybe something is going to happen faster or bigger or in a way that I have never seen. And that's truly what started the journey is just literally I get an email or a call from somebody from many years ago and they're like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, well, right now I'm kind of figuring it out. Well, why don't you come figure that out in my company? It's like, okay, and then all of a sudden I'm in front of 5 or 10 salespeople and we start having conversations of, what do you love about your job? What do you wish you could do more of? What do you wish you could do less of? And they start to tell me, and you're like, wait a minute, the answers are here. And I think that's kind of where I feel like the co-creation is. The
Mm-hmm.
answers are
Mm-hmm.
here. We just need to change what we see, how we think, let go of certain things so that
Yes.
they come forward.
Yes.
Uh, and then they become obvious and they come natural. I always say it's like clothes that fit versus clothes that don't. I think when you're co-creating, you start to put on clothes that feel more like the clothes that fit
Mm.
your body than forced.
Yes. 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 There's no force. There's no. It's. I know it's really exploration, experience, and in practicing like everything in life. Now, when we want to well to grow. So for this also, it's not uh, because you are so in the mind. What you and me are talking feels difficult. Well, because the mind says it's difficult. No, it's you're not going to. No, how can I be in the heart? How can I be in the now when I have to think of so many things? No, but once you are really living and enjoying what you do, and you have taken off all the masks, and you are really you. It's so simple, it's so
Right?
freeing. No, it's such a liberation, such a freedom of everything
Absolutely.
and
I,
connection.
I think I always thought about sales. Like I said, I'm in the world of
Mm-hmm.
sales. Oftentimes I'll be on a podcast or somebody will say, how did you get in this business? Have you always been a sales guy? And I'll think back and I'm like, if you say a salesperson is someone that likes to connect with other people, learn about them, share back and see what happens, then yes. And they kind of go, what do you mean? I was like, well, have you ever been at home or maybe you're visiting your parents or your sister or somebody and this little kid runs up, maybe a neighbor, and they're like, hi, Mr. Carl. And you're like, hi, little guy. And what are you doing today? How come you have a dressed up shirt on today? It's the 4th of July, like things like that. And it's like they're just so curious and they just empty out their curiosity. They just share the curiosity. And if you can stay with that little kid for
Yes.
the next 5 minutes and not worry about putting the groceries away or whatever, You start to create this bond, have this magical experience, and he might tell you something that you end up doing. Like they might say, "Oh, well, we went and saw this big old train that's coming through Colorado, and I've always loved trains." And you go, "You know what? One of my best friends has little kids that like trains." And you send a text to your friend and go, "Hey, did you know this big train's coming through town?" And he's like, "No." Next thing you know, you've created an experience for your friend. So for me, I was that little kid. I was
Yeah.
that little kid that just was so excited to talk to other people about what was going on in my day. And as I grew up, it kind of became connection, and that
Yes.
connection became helping people see something else. And in sales, really great salespeople, I think that's what they do. They learn about what's going on in your life. They listen. They don't over talk. When it feels like the time to share, they share. And at the end of that conversation, you both probably have an idea of something next. In the world of sales, that might be a purchase or another meaning versus this, like you said, this very rigored, my outcome has to be this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes it's just realizing that, how do you want to move your day forward? Is it really structured and planned? And sometimes it is. Or are you open to the possibility of co-creation? What's going to happen when I get on this call? What's going to happen when I get on this airplane seat? I'm actually going to tell you that. I had this really great friend in my early 20s. And um, after maybe 5 or 6 years, we fell out of touch.
Yeah.
So no reason. We just, life moves on. He moved. So about 10 years ago, I'm on a plane and the whole plane's full except one seat, the seat next to me. This guy walks in and sits down. I turn to him and I go, "You're Eric, aren't you?" And he turns to me and he's like, "You're Karl, right?" I was like, "Holy cow, it's been like 15 years since we've seen each other. What's your life like?" And we became, our friendship restarted, and I've visited him numerous times. I've gone skiing with him and my son, and we get into adventures and we text frequently. Not in a million years would I
Mhm.
think that, right? And so just
Yes.
the ability of letting life happen sometimes,
Yes.
letting possibility happen. And I love that story because who am I going to sit down next to next time,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the
Mm-hmm.
next time there's an empty seat, who's going to show up there? Um, so I love the point of view you have of just letting things happen, and then the next clue, the next step starts to visualize in front of you. You start to see what it is, and you get to choose whether you want to go forward with that or not.
Yes. Yes. And in your mind, came into my mind a world of wonders
Mm.
when you do that, no? Like what you were saying, no? Who knows who's going to be sitting next to me next time? And the beauty of that is really the awareness and the gratefulness of who's going to be there. So it's a wonder, no? And it's not an expectation of the mind, because you're
Right.
not saying someone like this will be sitting next to me. No, you're saying, I wonder who's going to be sitting next to me and will surprise me with something, because at the end you don't know who's going to be. So it's a surprise anyhow, no? So it's a world of wonder.
That reminds me, I mentioned my son. I have two sons. I mention them a lot when I talk. So
I love
this
that.
same son I went sailing with about a month ago, um, I reconnected with another friend from the past, and he lives in Portland, and he's a designer. And my son really is getting into design.
Hmm.
So I called up my friend. I said, "Hey, we haven't seen each other for like 10 years. Um, I've always wanted to see Portland. My son really loves design. You have an amazing design company and you have an amazing portfolio. Would it be all right if we come out for a week? We'll work out of your office. My son can shadow you a little bit, and
Hmm.
let's just see what happens." He's like, "Yeah, that would be amazing." Well, again, possibility. All I did was put the seed of an opportunity in
Yes.
the dirt. And my son had an amazing time. He learned a ton. My friend's wife is a designer. I didn't know this. She designs all these home goods.
Mm-hmm.
my son starts to work with her instead of my friend.
Uh-huh.
And my son really falls in love with like design, and he designs carpet. She has like an ability to make really fun design like rugs.
Yeah, Rex, yeah.
And so he spends 2 days designing a rug. And at the end of that time, she says, "Hey, we're going to make that rug. We're going to put it up
Mm-hmm.
on the website, and we're going to make you one and send it to your house." Again, uh, I don't know what's going to happen, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
the possibility.
Yes.
And so, he's now left that trip with more knowledge, more inspiration. He's changed his own life. Here in a couple of weeks, he's going to have that memory in his room from now on because that rug's
Mm-hmm.
going to go up. And again, I couldn't have planned that.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I just wanted him to find some inspiration, find something that gave him a different perspective in life as he starts to think about what he wants to do as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And it was accomplished. So I think you can have an idea like,
Yeah.
hey, I'd like to do something that inspires my son.
Yes.
Hey, I would like to make better software. Hey, I would like to have a better culture. But that's where it stops.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you bring people or possibilities together and just see what happens?
Yes. Yes. It's the intention. No? And I remember when I was doing just for doing against the wall many times, I learned to really be, no? And okay, I don't have anything to do. I don't know what I should do next. So I take a book and I start reading and I wait for an inspiration, for an idea. No, and it's what I apply now. Okay, no, perfect. I know I don't know anything and I don't have to know, but I wait for inspirations, for an idea that comes up. Maybe now I read and whoop, an idea of something comes up and I write it down and act on it. For instance, call this and this. Okay, yeah, that's good idea. I should do that. And I do that. And that always that leads to other things. It opens up possibilities. Just because you got that, those are like hinges. I don't know, they get in and and they give you something, you say, okay, I will respond on that. I will do it. But it's
Absolutely.
really lay back and wait. And it can be many days that you really don't know what to
Yes,
do
it can.
and where to continue, no?
Yeah,
But once you respond to something and you see what happens afterwards and how it's unfolding, you say, "Wow, it was really worth waiting for
absolutely.
that little
I
thing."
think there's two types of co-creation environments. One is
Yeah.
the accidental. I'll give you a silly example. But as you were talking, I was thinking about, I don't know about you, but my refrigerator will have like little pieces of ingredients that we've used in prior meals.
Mm-hmm.
I have a little bit of salsa from taco night. I have a little bit of cheese from taco night. Oh, I have an extra pie crust for like a pizza, stuff like this, right? Like you've got these random things in your pantry, random food in your refrigerator. And in my house, when I make something from the random, it's called man style because it's
Mm-hmm.
just a man and he's like, oh, cheese and sauce, oh, nachos, But but I was with my oldest son last summer and it got late. He's hungry and we want to watch a movie and hang out. And as your kids get older, you want every moment you can with them.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, yeah, let's watch a movie. Well, it was late enough that I couldn't order pizza and there was not much in there. Well, we ended up making taco pizza. So we had pizza, like a piece of, the pie piece, the
Yes.
bread. We didn't have any tomato sauce, but we had salsa. So we put salsa down instead. We had some ground beef from taco night. We put that on there and just some random cheese. And it was this amazing pizza. I mean, it wasn't amazing, but for two guys
But
at
it
10
was
o'clock
good
at
to know
night,
that.
it was good enough. And so we still remember that. We're like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, do you remember when we had, taco pizza night? And now I have this thing that just happened, but it's like an anchor, a memory anchor for my son and
Yes.
I. And
Yeah.
no matter how old we'll be, hey, you want to do taco pizza night again or something like that? And that was an accident, right? Like none of that was planned. And then I think you have the co-creation of, okay, we've got this development team, we've got this group of salespeople, we've got some group of people, and you just create the possibility of what do you want to talk about today?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's something personal. Maybe it's you were using another application and there's a piece of usability you really liked and you want to share it with me. But I think if you want to co-create like pragmatically or like as part of how you do your job or how you live your life, it's about helping all the people around you have those little accidents. Hey,
Yeah.
what's something you did today? What are you going to do this weekend? You know, if you could change anything in our software product, literally, like just magic one, you could touch it and it'll happen. What would it do? Well, I always thought it should. Oh, well, let's talk about that. Right. And it's helping the things that you don't see kind of manifest or show up
Mm-hmm.
with you. And I think that's the practical way. Like if you want to be a facilitator of co-creation, you just seed it with a couple ideas and then I call it hold the space. You just
Yeah.
let
Yeah.
people feel safe, creative, and share. And the more you do that, it because in a work setting, it's not just once. It's like if you can
Yeah.
make it a way of being,
Mm-hmm.
hey, get together and we're going to have a co-creation session. What the heck is that? Well,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to do it every Monday from now on. And this first Monday, all we might co-create is what we're going to have for lunch today. But you just start allowing
Yeah.
people to know it's okay, no judgment, to share whatever they want. And then before you know it, other people, at least in my experience, other people start to design, other people
Yes.
start to take it and run with it and make it theirs. And to me, that's one of my favorite things is when
Yes.
somebody else gets inspired and they turn, my son making this rug. Like, who knew he was going to create a rug? I didn't know he was going to create a rug, and I
Mm.
didn't even know he would like to. And it's super colorful. Like this is a kid that most of his wardrobe's gray and black. And all of a
Ah.
sudden he has this rug with bright oranges and greens and yellows, and you're like, whoa. So again, I think if you can be the person that enables people to
Yes.
bring things forward, at least for me, it's
Yes.
super fun. I love it.
Yes. It's what we, and I guess you too, it's called this, it's like the true leadership. At the end, you're a leader for yourself and for everyone else when you are in your heart, no
I
matter
love
where
that.
you are. No,
I
so
love
it's
that.
yeah, so it's this. Since you are in your heart and you are you, and you are with others, you you promote for them to know they can be their true leaders. They can be themselves. They can create through who they are. They can open up. It's safe. No, and when you do that, you are positively impacting. No, when you live in your heart, when you are the true leader, you are positively impacting people around you because they feel that you are just you, simple. No, and they start seeing, observing, feeling, and knowing they can also express without fear and just be. No, and this is the dynamic that happens even if you don't want to. That's co-creation. That's co-creation. Co-creation is allowing everyone else to be who they are and respect, value, love. No, so if you love and value yourself and respect yourself, you do it automatically with everyone. No,
That's incredible.
and that's
That was really
co-creation.
well said.
Mm.
Well said. Uh, Absolutely. And I would say the bonus of that, just to kind of give the bonuses, at least for me, I've started to see the other people in these meetings that are in my life, whether it's family or friends or clients, they start to do the same thing
Mm-hmm.
with their kids or with their team or with their spouse
Yes.
or their parents. And it breaks the confines of what we think things should be.
Mm-hmm.
Because no matter how good you are at thinking how things should be, you're always going to be wrong. You know,
Yes.
the best picnic, right? Like, oh, it's a beautiful day. I did it in September when it never rains. Well, what's going to happen? It's going to rain that day, right? We can't control these things, but what we can do is learn how to be in things
Mm-hmm.
in a way that's right for us. And then by doing that, I think other people start to do the same thing and it
Yes.
and it expands and
Yes.
multiplies. And I get back to, your vision, like the more that people can do that and bring themselves and bring love to others and create possibilities, create openness, then I don't know what's going to happen. I just know that it's going to be better, right? I don't need to
Yes.
know exactly what happens. I just know
No.
it'll be a healthier, more positive, less stressful, less angry, um, more collaborative. And that's what I love about the kind of
Yes.
thing around co-creation. Everybody, they participate, they get enrolled. It's theirs as well as mine. We all
Mm-hmm.
own it together versus feeling like you have to do this thing that Carl told you to do. I don't want
Yes.
to do this thing. Well, we have to. But if you're part of it, you want to.
Mm-hmm. And you would put everything in it because you are also creating it. And another result of this, of co-creation, is the nurturing.
Hmm.
Because everything you give, it comes back. So you nurture, you allow people to expand, to be who they are, to create, just because you are, not because you are pushing for that. No, it's just because you are. So you get nurtured
That's a
through
really good.
by them at the same time. No, it's co-creation is the dancing of giving and receiving in harmony. It's
I've never
not
thought of it
giving.
like that. That's
Yeah,
great. I like that a lot.
it's not the giving too much. It's not the receiving too much. It's really the harmony because you are giving who you are through who you are, and the other person is receiving what resonates and they're learning from your leadership, from who you are, your uniqueness. Now, everyone is unique, so they're learning through your uniqueness what they have to nurture their uniqueness. Let's say. So it's a dancing of giving and receiving. Co-creation is like that because you are in wholeness. You are you. You
Yeah,
are
that's
not.
what I'm taking today. I'm taking that jewel away today.
Thank
Art. That's really great too. Yeah.
you. No, it's really a pleasure talking to you, co-creating with you, Carl, and knowing from the heart, knowing, not the mind, um, that you are a co-creator as well. And everyone is, but that you embody that and that, yeah, from the heart. I
Thank
love
you.
it. I see it. I feel it.
Me
And
too.
I'm very grateful for that.
I am exactly the same to know that you're out doing the same thing, sharing this message, leading, inspiring, teaching. Yeah, it's really healthy. Thank you for letting me come and have this time with you and just share and co-create.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you.